Thank you for listening to the Unscripted Dreams Podcast with Joe and Marcus. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at unscripteddreams@gmail.com. If you're interested in listening to exclusive content that includes bonus episodes and our hindsight video series, please join us on Patreon at the Unscripted Dreams Podcast. If you're listening to our podcast on YouTube, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Thank you.
Let's do it.
Hey, as we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad. The day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard to see our way through. Beyond the norm and mundane are where unscripted dreams live. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. All right, so this is Joe, and you got Marcus on the line. We back again for another episode. This week, we're actually going to speak on Social Dilemma. It's a movie actually on Netflix. And basically, Social Dilemma is geared around how we are glued to what you call social media, how it impacts us, and how has it changed how we communicate with people now compared to way back when. So yeah, we're going to talk about it and we're going to get into it.
Yeah, so this documentary on Netflix, some days it's trending in the top 10 on Netflix, has that top 10 now. Some days it isn't. I enjoy that it is trending, but I hope that people are watching it and actually taking something away from it and not just like watching it just for, like for their own, just for your entertainment.
Right. Just to say that you saw it.
Yeah. Because I haven't watched any discussions, any reactions or any, reviews of this. I just kind of watched it and consumed. I've actually watched it twice now, once initially and then the second as, I prepared for this episode. But like you were saying, Joe, it's how really goes into, how social media really affects us and just some of the, like, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think that's what makes this, I thought it was well put together. After
Hands down, man, like it was definitely like a documentary that wasn't necessarily like, when you think of documentaries like this, you think that it would be told from a perspective of like older generations, and usually that can be viewed as them, bashing younger generations. But actually, it's told from a perspective where it's really unbiased. I could be wrong, but I didn't see no like blatant bias as this watching this documentary as some do.
Yeah, Joe, that's the one thing that I had was that usually when you see a documentary of this nature, you see people like maybe retired executives and people that are very successful or were very successful. These are usually older people. They're usually 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, because they're reflecting back on what was going on, before. But what was unique about this documentary is that these are young people. Like, these are people that they're probably not that much older than us, maybe by a few years.
Yeah,
maybe.
Definitely in our generation.
So, and that was what was I think that was one of the things that was so unique about this, is that when you're watching this, you kind of look at it, you're like, man, all these people are they're pretty young and they're talking about this. And it's really like they're talking about it in real time instead of waiting 20 or 30 years from now saying like, yeah, look at these things that, I was a part of and it wasn't that great what we did. And I feel bad about it. Like, these people feel bad about it right now. And they're talking about it. And I think that was what was unique about this, because you have people that worked for, Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. Pretty much most of these major tech companies. You have really like a bit of everything that, they have attached to this documentary. But that was one of the components that was interesting. It was just the age, just the sheer age of these people that we're seeing in this documentary.
Right. And that's what amazed me about the actual whole documentary, is the fact that they actually openly admitted, I don't know if people are going to come down on them because they made this documentary, but they actually explained some of the tactics that they use as far as like advertising, or they would actually sit there and capture everything you click on, and they would use that against you. So knowing how the human brain works, it was easy for them to make predictions. Like, for a perfect example, you might be lurking. And for people that don't know what lurking is lurking is spying. If you don't know what spying is, it's more so like stalking. It's like a cross between spying and stalking. I call it lurking, whatever. So everyone lurks. If you don't lurk, then I don't know why you have a social media, because that's all it is lurking to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Joe, one thing before
Yeah,
I just want
go
to
ahead.
say something real quick. So, full transparency. So I have, like I do I have a Facebook right now. I have a Twitter. I have Instagram. I have a LinkedIn as well. I left Facebook. I don't know if it's 2017, 2018. I left it personally, and I didn't have any of these new social accounts. I maintained the LinkedIn for professional use, but the Instagram, the Twitter, and really me being back on Facebook is really just a result of me having a business. Like the only reason I returned to the platforms, I was never on Instagram or Twitter until I had my own business. And the only reason I got back on Facebook a few months ago is because I'm currently in school for to get my life coach certification, and the group where I can interact with students isn't built into the learning platform to actually have it set up to where the groups kind of connect through Facebook. So I had to get back on Facebook so I could connect with other students to do some of my training and some of the other things that are required for the coursework. So I'm only there for business. Like my relationship with social media it's a business transaction. I'm not there for like I'm not really there for like my personal use. And as soon as I get done with school, I'm leaving Facebook. As soon as I'm done, I'm gone again. But I just want to say that for the record.
You're hilarious for that, man. You really are. So basically, the example what I was trying to explain for lurking is, you may have a person of interest. Say that there's somebody that you heard about or heard of. So maybe they are somebody that's remotely close, but they're outside of your immediate circle. But say one of your friends told you about them, for example, girl talk. Say that a guy that you used to date, obviously he's out of your circle because you guys no longer communicate on that level for whatever reasons. Your girlfriend said that this guy is dating somebody new, right? So what are you going to do? If you're not blocked, you're probably going to end up spying and creeping on his page. So more times than not, they would capture this data of you looking at this person's page. And depending on how many times or how often you look at it and the way that these social media accounts are set up, they're going to start showing stuff that is not too far removed from what you want to look at. That whole time, the computer has been capturing that data as far as like what you're likely to look at. So outside of looking at these Fendi bags or Gucci bags or whatever website you're on, that you're trying to get some materialistic things and you see those ads pop up occasionally, you would also see links of this person's account or a picture they were tagged in, a comment they made, and the list goes on. So basically, with this whole lurking thing and how smart these computers are today, it's really kind of terrifying because slowly but surely they're controlling you. Slowly but surely they're controlling you.
Well, I think Joe, uh, there's levels. There's levels to it. I'll backtrack a little bit because the people that they're talking to, if you can recall, in the very beginning of the documentary, they asked the question of what the problem is, and they don't answer it. Like they don't answer it because they're nervous. They never answer. They answer it throughout. They kind of answer it throughout the documentary, but they're
But
nervous
they left
because
it to your interpretation because they're afraid of Big Brother.
yeah. Well, for one, these people made their. I mean, for some of these people, they made their fortune or their wealth being associated with these companies and these platforms. And also, you think about it, even though these people maybe have departed from these companies and
Right.
they've moved on, these individuals that they work with are still their friends. They're still their business partners. So I think you could kind of see that in some of the interaction. But it appeared like they want to maintain their relationships and not create this conflict, but they also want to do something about what they know is happening. So you could tell with some of them, you could tell like they were like really conflicted with what they had hands of, what they were a part of, but they didn't want to, you know, like discredit their friend or really like put their friends and their business partners maybe in a bad spot as well. So I could kind of understand how, somebody might be reluctant to say certain things, but overall it's greed is what it is. But like what you were saying, Joe, like them tracking the information and things like that. Like I think the best part of this documentary, in my opinion, hands down, is a portrayal of the algorithm or the artificial intelligence.
Right.
Because you have these three. I remember the first scene where they show it. I remember kind of looking at it and I was wondering, I was like, is this the algorithm? And then the second time I was like, it's definitely the algorithm that they've kind of put a face on it. I think they did an exceptional job of showing the algorithm or the artificial intelligence to the best of their ability. Like, I think it was like really exceptional. And you see that, I mean, there's different, to go back to what you're saying, Joe, you see that there's like different parts to why and how uh, they gauge your they're gauging your engagement on certain posts, on certain pictures, and how it is like very planned out as to how they go about. And when I say they, I'm referring to the social media platforms. So this is like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, things like that, of how they are tracking and keeping your data so they can essentially, I mean, it's all about it's a business model. And they're using that to sell, your attention to advertisers. And what's important to understand about that is that you're doing these things, like Joe, you're referring to the lurking and looking at all these other people. There's a scene. It's called the where the guy, because this family. I want to talk about this family too, Joe. but
Okay.
and, but there's a scene where the kid, it's the younger girl. It's a blended family, but there's a younger girl and there's two teenagers, and the boy who's really kind of seems, well, he really seems to be the focus.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a period where he gets off of social media to get like as a deal of some sort to get his phone, his screen fixed by his parents, which I want to talk about how that happened, but they called it resurrection mode because he was off the platform for so long. It started to trigger things. And how you're saying, Joe, about the lurking, if those algorithms that artificial intelligence is checking and really tracking how long you spend with a certain like images, certain videos, what your engagement is, then they use that like in this resurrection mode scene. They picked in that scene what you're saying, Joe, is they use this kid's ex-girlfriend to use him. They use that to pull him back in. They used it as a tool, and once they got him, and he was locked back in after that. So what you might view as harmless behavior, spying on somebody, that data is being used. It's being used against you essentially. What do you think about that, Joe?
I stand by my statement earlier. They're controlling you.
Yeah. So, Joe, I want to talk about this family. Well, since I brought this up, all right. So, I say it's a blended family. All right. So there's a you know there's a family. There's these kids. There's the kids that are there, Then there's the youngest kid, and based on my theory, I don't think the dad is any of these. I don't think the dad is the biological father of any of these kids. All right.
Sucks to be him, right?
So now, I mean, that just kind of is what it is. But the reason I say that is because like throughout this, they show the stepdad, and he's like pretty passive on everything. And there's a scene. Well, there's a scene. It's kind of like the mother. Joe, let me know what you think about this. It's kind of like the mom is she's in real time trying to figure out what to do because she realizes that this social media thing, like she realizes this is an issue. She just doesn't know
How to go about it.
approach it. So, there's a scene where the mother decides to put all the phones in this kitchen safe thing for dinner. And like it's an issue, but stepdad, he gives it up, the kids give it up. And the one daughter, the older daughter, she's not like she's disconnected from it. She don't fool around with social media and stuff. But the son gives it up, and the youngest daughter, is the most reluctant to give it up. And it's like a real issue for this little girl. So what she does is, after they lock it up, there's this awkwardness and there's this discussion that they're having, and they're struggling without these phones, man. They're really struggling to have a conversation. And the phones are going off. Like you would think like, hey, why don't you put your phones on silent if you're going to put them in this kitchen safe and lock it for an hour or so? Like maybe turn it off so that the phone isn't vibrating every time you get a notification. But the youngest daughter goes off. Hey, you watching? Like, what's this girl doing? Bro, she goes in the back, puts these goggles on, and busts this container open with her phone on it and runs upstairs. And the reason why I say I wonder if this guy is even any of these kids' parents is because, he looks at what I assume is supposed to be his wife, and he asks her, he's like, do you want me to go up there and do something? I'm like, why are you asking her? Like somebody needs, like one of you guys just needs to get up and like handle that. But the fact that he's like asking permission for things, I wonder if he's like even the parent, the biological parent, just because of his trepidation and such, his hesitation and his very low level of activity. I don't think any of these are his like real kids, but and that was the thing, and I think that kind of draws me to like how parents are dealing with, like, I don't have kids, Joe, you don't have kids, but like that brings me to really thinking about how like parents actually approach the use of like social media, these applications, and that a lot of them I think don't really know what to do because everything is evolving.
I mean, you got to think about this, Marcus. It's integrated in everything you do now. It's integrated to the point where you can't log into certain things without them asking you, hey, do you have a Google account? Do you have a Facebook account? Do you have a LinkedIn account? If you want to, instead of creating a new account, you could use these to identify with creating a new account. It would just go off the strength of you having a social media platform. It's a trap, but when you have things like that, it's kind of hard to disassociate from that. Like LinkedIn pulls you in that social media realm already off bat because you want a job, right? You want to be marketable, right? So if you don't have anything shaking for you, at least you have an opportunity to get on there and I guess not be a quote unquote Jimmy from LinkedIn where you're trying to holler at people on LinkedIn or whatnot. But I guess you could do that, I guess to get a job if you're that smooth enough. But what I'm saying is there's opportunity, and what's a better shot at trying to get something that you already don't have or something you desire? If opportunity is there, people are going to flock to it all day, every day. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it, but the idea of you actually having that thought in your mind that there's somebody out there for you or there's a job out there for you, you're going to put your chips in on that every time.
Hope. Hope.
Now, when we think about things like this, I'm not in the dating market as far as like, I'm not interested in those dating apps. I've looked at them. I think they're all trash. That's just my opinion.
They're
But,
pretty bad. Pretty bad.
but I know people that spend maybe not hundreds of dollars, but they definitely they pay a subscription to actually use these things. And I'm like, give or take, how often do you go on dates? And I asked a girl that I used to work with that would do this. And, she would go on a few dates and let's just say that some of them are cool, I guess. And they always end up being flings, but there's never no value or substance in it because of how they met wasn't 100% genuine, which is unfortunate. That's not true in every case. So I'm not bashing, dating apps like that. But what I'm trying to say is the idea of you having opportunity, you have options, people are going to flock to that every single time. That's no different than me actually going online and I'm looking through a whole catalog on Amazon of video games.
Yeah.
I have options. So that's what I mean by that.
Sometimes too many options is a bad thing.
Oh, without a doubt, 100%. That's another problem because you end up wasting time of productivity or time of you actually going to the store, or time of you actually going out to meet somebody, time of you actually having an actual full-on conversation with a manager at a job or something like that, depending on how, every company operates differently. But nothing's better than face-to-face conversation. And I guess I'm old school in that way. But at the same time, I know that you can take everything for face value versus online. Anybody can spin you.
Yeah. And I agree that I agree with you on that, Joe. Like 100%. But it's like when it becomes normal, and that's the way. Like I feel that, like with the dating apps, for one thing, Joe, it's like social media has created the space really for the dating apps because the way people, not everybody, but the way a good deal of people communicate has transitioned to online. So there's certain things that you don't see, like as far as like gatherings and things like that, because they're gathering more so online, and it makes it more difficult to meet people.
Yeah, because when you use something like that, it's like the middleman between you and the other person on the receiving end. And unfortunately, the unfortunate side is you can boost yourself up, and the other person can boost themselves up, and they end up being not what you thought they were. That's the downside of all of it. But the good thing is you actually get to meet people. Some people are genuine, but that's few and far in between. But that's another conversation for another day. But what I'm getting at is it's not even just like apps like that, like with Instagram, say you meet people out in public. People don't even give you their number anymore. They say, you know what, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Let me see them Instagram followers. Let's see how many people you working with. Let's see who you interact with. Let's see what you be saying on Twitter. Let's see what you be saying on Facebook. Let's see who you connected with on Facebook. Are you connected with people I know? Because I don't want you to be connected with certain people I know. You might know something about me I don't want you to know. So these are things that go through my head when I meet people, and people are like, oh yeah, bro, hit me up on the Instagram. I'm like, why do I need to do that? And we having a one-on-one conversation right here, bro. Like, I'm not saying that I want your number, and this can be geared towards a female too. It's not saying I want your number, but if we talking business or we talking about something where value, why do I need your Instagram or social media for that? By talking to you, that's giving me everything I need to know about you.
Yeah. Yeah. And Joe, one of the things that I was thinking about is there was I'm going back to the algorithm here. Now,
Sure.
and you saw how would it look to be how the artificial intelligence, the algorithm, was creating this profile for the individuals, like for people. And this
Mm-hmm.
profile was letting you know the person's interests,
Yep.
and it was also getting into like geographical geographical, like your location, what
That's
your
crossing the
interests are,
line, most
and
definitely.
all this other stuff. And it brought me back to so when I saw this, I was not surprised. You think about these data points and all this other stuff, and um, I was thinking about how there was this episode of Black Mirror. Joe, you watch Black Mirror at all? Have you watched
I've
any of it?
seen a few, man. Yeah.
All right. So when I saw this profile, I was like, I knew y'all was doing. I was like, it didn't surprise me that you had all this information because you had to think about how much stuff people put on, like putting all your pictures, you put your work information on there. If you put your work information on there, you can do a quick search and see what the mean income is for a certain position.
Yep.
And then you have like location information, and you're putting all this stuff. Like people have information about like your relationship status and all this stuff and things like that. Like I remember, like in college, because when they added that stuff to the thing, like that single status, I remember I had a girlfriend in college, and like that was an issue because I didn't update it. I was like, I just really
Yeah.
don't care. I was like, does it matter? Like, does it really matter if I change? If I change that?
Bro, listen, I've been through that with a couple of relationships when I was younger, man, and I just don't understand the significance behind that. If it's between me and you, it's between me and you. What else does it matter?
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I know some people ran into those issues, but you know, I mean, silly things that I hope as we get older we realize how um, silly these things are. But there was an episode on Black Mirror where this guy this is the last season, season 5. So this show premiered in maybe like June or July of 2019, and he kidnapped the main character of this episode. He kidnapped an employee from a social media company, which is it's Facebook. Okay, it doesn't matter what they're trying to tell you. It's Facebook. Okay, but anyway, he holds him. He's keeping this guy because he's really trying to fulfill something for this woman that he knows, whose daughter passed away or something. But when the police are trying to figure out, when they're trying to find out information about this guy, they contact the social media company, and this company pulls up this profile on this guy who did the kidnapping, and they're telling you his income level, his suspected intelligence level, and all these things about him. And they show this profile, and it has these percentages and all this other stuff about him. And I said, that's a lot of detailed information. And I remember I paused it right when I saw this. And I told myself, I said, this is real. Like, this isn't something that they're just putting in a TV show for entertainment purposes. This is something that I said, this is too feasible to be fake.
That's really happening behind the scenes.
Injected. And this was something I saw in 2019. And I realized, I said, this isn't just like it. Like, stop trying to put something in a TV show and think I'm just going to not get that this is something real that you've injected into the show. So I knew when I saw that, I said, this is a real thing. They put it in the show, and some people would just think like, oh yeah, maybe that's something they would do one day. Like, no, I was like, I knew that came from something that already existed. And seeing this confirms, well, it didn't confirm because I already knew, but it further validates the fact that these ideas that I have are accurate, and I'm not crazy with some of the things that I think. It's just that, that information isn't presented because, and some things aren't, and I've said this before, some things they're not going to tell you. Like, people aren't going to explain and dumb down everything for you. Some things you have to figure out for yourself. And I had enough information at the time about social media to know that profile that I saw was feasible and it probably existed, which was confirmed by watching this. But, I knew that. But, they have all this information because you have to think about, even before I left Facebook initially, you realize, like, you put all these pictures and on Instagram and Twitter, you put all this information about yourself on there. They can just pull that data, pull that information, because you're putting where you went to school, where you work, you're uploading all these pictures, and you're interacting with people throughout these platforms. And those create data points, and then you're interacting with ads as well. So like, all that stuff is being used, it's really used for advertisers and things like that. I mean, I don't know what other nefarious purpose it's being used for, but it's definitely being used for those purposes as well. But these are things to think about when you just like, oh yeah, I want to post every picture that I have. Oh, this is a great picture. Let me go ahead and post this, and things like that. So, you're really volunteering the information, and that's the genius of it, is that you're just giving it up for free. But,
Free.
but, uh, but yeah, that reminded me of that because I knew that was real. I knew it was a real thing, and bro, these folks got profiles on all of us. And you have to understand that, and that's why it's important to control
I
what you
don't
put
know.
online.
Yeah, I don't know why you're so surprised by that. And I'm glad that you talked about that because this is what I'm gonna say, man. Like when you thought about like people don't realize like everything's being filmed, uploaded to these sites as well. So that's adding more to your profile. So like people don't realize like it's very important or the people that are gonna be the most valuable people are going to be the ones that refrain from using social media the most. It may not seem like it right now, but it will later on. This is kind of like a compare. It's almost like I give you a good analogy. It's almost like how like everybody nowadays have tattoos all over their bodies. Not saying anything's wrong with that, but we all know with tattoos, when you get older, your body changes. So the skin might get loose or you might get bigger. So the tattoos might stretch out. So, you ain't gonna be looking right. That's how it's going to be with the whole social media. You're going to have all this ammunition of like storylines and stuff like that were sold to us as being good memories. But realistically, there's going to be bad and crazy and outstanding information in there as well, where people can look in there and one day you're going to have to answer to your kids or your grandkids or your great grandkids if you're lucky. Um, about what you did back in 2020. Like, oh, we saw on the riots, grandpa, that you was trying to break open an ATM machine and stuff, and you was out there smoking weed and doing drugs and all this stuff. All this stuff. We found this at the search we saw it on Google. Like, we looked you up. Like, that's what comes to mind when I think of social media, and that's how I look at it. Like, I've always knew from the beginning of how powerful it was. That never escaped my mind ever since I logged in on Facebook. I think that was 2006. That was when I started my account for Facebook. I knew right then and there how powerful that tool was and where it was headed.
You know, Joe, that's interesting because I did not know, because it's that human element that you want to be connected to other people. But Facebook was like,
That's
I
the
remember,
that's the sell. That's the selling
yeah.
point.
But Facebook was cool because it was exclusive, and then
No, I
over
knew they were
time
gonna open it up.
it wasn't exclusive, and that's when it started to lose its appeal to me. Is because, and I was like, like my dad can get on Facebook now. My
Yeah,
dad might
nobody
be
want to
on,
see
my
no
parents.
nosy. Yeah, nobody want to see no nosy ass grandmas on your page. Like, hey, call me. How come you didn't
So
call me?
so that's when it changed. It really started to change for me, and I mean, I'm glad that you, Joe, were able to see, what it was all going to be about, because I couldn't see that initially. And I think that, like, I was looking at, so I started to think about when the first time I decided to like leave Facebook, because I remember when I graduated from college, I think I stopped using it on the tail end of college. And then once I graduated, I think I would get on there every so often, maybe like update my picture, maybe like twice a year. And then I remember one time, I think this was maybe 2015, 2016. I don't know when it was, but the guy in the documentary, his name is, I think it's Azaraskin. And this guy was the inventor. I guess it says he was the inventor of the infinite scroll. And I remember one day I got on Facebook maybe to update my picture or something. And I just was scrolling through the feed. I was like, oh, these are people I went to high school with that I don't talk to. And I wasn't getting, like, keep in mind, I wasn't getting on Facebook at all, really. The only investment was the pictures that I had on there, which I eventually pull off when I delete my account, because that was the only real value. Fortunately for me, I'm not somebody who takes a lot of pictures, so it wasn't that difficult to pull everything off and just delete my account. But for us people who have like thousands and thousands of pictures on there, or hundreds of pictures,
It's a
like
wrap.
that's that investment that you pour into it, and that makes it harder for you to leave. But when I saw that the infinite scroll, when I scrolled, and it was the first time I listened, I was like, this isn't stopping. Like usually the scroll stops, and that's it. And I thought to myself, the thought I had to myself, I was like, this is dangerous. This infinite scroll. And I was like, I need to probably get off of here. I was like, I saw, because it wasn't that I was worried for myself, but I was like, people are going to get hooked even more on this because now you can't stop. It doesn't stop. It just keeps going. Um,
Well, this is what also frustrates me about this, Marcus. As a safety feature, security, this is a huge security issue. I don't care if your account's private or not. Anybody can figure out how to get accepted by you, or they can get access to somebody that's a friend of you to look at your stuff. And what I'm trying to say in so many words, man, is people don't understand, like, this is how people get taken out the game. This is how people get robbed, shot, killed, all this type of stuff. And this is worst case scenario, most definitely. But what I'm saying is anybody that's living the life of crime, all they got to do is get on Facebook, search on the city that they want to hit up. There's plenty of people out there with public pages that don't even know how to guard their stuff and be looking in your house. Look at all these pictures you got and be like, oh, okay, this is what they got in the crib. Okay, so let me see. Let me figure out where their location is. And that ain't going to take much. All they got to do is circle through a few friends and they can find where you live.
yeah.
So these are the type of things, like, you're giving people ammo to take you under, man, take you down.
And the thing is, Joe, is that people don't like
They don't
me and
think
you,
like it.
me and you, like we think like that. But there's
Well,
people
that's how we were raised, honestly. But
but some people, they're just oblivious. They are oblivious. They are oblivious to the fact that there are people in this world. Their whole MO is, they plot to take the things that you work hard for. That is what they do. That is their profession. So, while you sit and you think like, oh, I'm going to post this and all that, like, why do you need to post that? Because there's somebody watching you. There might be somebody sitting on your house trying to figure out your schedule after you post this, all this stuff up about what you got, what you have and things like that. And then don't go on vacation and post pics while you're on vacation. Then they
dumbest
know
thing.
you're not. Then they know you're not home.
That happened to one of my good friends, and yeah,
Just save it.
yeah,
Save it till you get back, or don't post it at all. Like how thirsty are you for likes and stuff that you have to post that stuff right then, just so you can create this illusion about this 1 week vacation that you're on for 1 week in this place and these things that you don't do every day, so you can feel good about yourself and maybe make other people feel bad. So that's the issue. Jay, you make a good point. I'm not surprised you said that at all. But yeah, I mean, those are things to think about. Like you got people watching you that you don't even know are watching you. And I think that's something that we all have to think about. And one of the other things, Joe, that I saw in this documentary, I thought was interesting. Clearly, this is going to be a longer episode, but but there was a portion in the episode, it's around a 40-minute mark, and it is his name is Chamath. I'm not gonna say his last name because I can't say it, but he was the former the vice president of growth with Facebook, and he was discussing how you put all this value with all these things that you post on social media, and it leaves you more empty than you were before you even posted these things. This man's a billionaire, by the way, but you can tell when he's saying this, he feels guilty. Like he really feels bad about what he had his hands in, because I think he understands the gravity of what was happening, what they implemented, and like they said in the documentary, he essentially created the playbook for what these companies use. And I think like him saying that and these other people saying that is that they realize what has been done, and it's up to I mean, you think they might have a responsibility to do something, but it's up to, I mean, I think, we have to take control of, how we use these platforms and what we do because it was, designed like when they were talking about persuasive technology and that they have a model that essentially will plant ideas inside of people and they don't realize it. And I was like, where is this Inception? Yeah, I was like real life doing Inception on these social media platforms because that's what it sounds like to me. If you can plant an idea in somebody's mind and they don't realize it, that's Inception. So uh, it's just I mean these companies figured out how to hack people. They figured it out, and now it's up to us to find ways to counteract that. And I feel like if we don't, I mean, we're in trouble. Like we're definitely. I mean, I think we're already in trouble already because I see the effect that it has on people. But I mean, I think it's key. It's really key to understand like what has been created, how it's being used, and really what's the value to you because you have to remember these things are free. You're not paying for this, and you're not paying for this for a reason because like they said it in here, like you're the product, and how do you feel about being the product? But what are your thoughts, Joe?
I think what's very important right now, and I know a lot of people don't know where to start or what the heck I'm talking about because maybe you've never put order around yourself, but it's really time to start building structure around how you spend your time. And not only your time, but your attention. It's really important to start building structure on both ends. With time, of course, because you can look at something, and I'm guilty of it, but I'm guilty of it from a circumstance where I know I need some time to kill. So maybe I'm like doing something at work, and I'm like, this process is going to take like an hour to do. I'll look at the social media, and then before you know it, half the time's already gone by the time I actually look back up. Like we need to start putting structure around it. And then the other end of just putting structure around everything, you know, like you got to figure out what's your objectives. Like, what are you getting out of this? Uh, get in and get out. So
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And Joe can attest. Joe always, I think, will be able to attest. I want nothing to do with this social media stuff. But
if I could have it my way, I would probably eliminate.
yeah,
Well, I wouldn't say eliminate it 100%, but I would want it limited for sure. I would want it like limited to the point where okay, the picture stuff, all that stuff's cool, but like as far as it being associated with other things you're doing, like for example, you're on a different website and you're buying and making transactions in other spots, cut it out.
yeah. And it's just they try to interweave because it's the more you tie into stuff. Let's say use your Facebook and all this stuff. If you think it makes it easier, but it more so handcuffs you to those platforms.
You're building a case around yourself, whether you realize it or not. That's what's happening.
So that's one of the things, Joe. Yeah, you're right, man. You're right, Joe. And I think that like one of the like the key things to think about that I think about, I go back to is that if you've ever heard the stories that, Steve Jobs, Apple, I mean, iPhone, all that stuff, he didn't let his kids use the technology. Bill Gates didn't let his kids use the stuff either. They didn't use it or they had very limited time. And you heard some of the people in the documentary mention that as well, is that some of them don't let their kids use this stuff because they understand the consequence of using like the social media platforms, and just the endless scrolls and all this stuff and the immediate gratification and things like that. They realize there's some harm that is being done that maybe we can't see because realistically, the research that's being done now, this stuff won't be reported. I mean, it might get suppressed, but you won't see it because right now it's happening in real time. So you won't really see the long term effects until years from now. And, I think that's the real dilemma that we have. Uh,
I
because
mean,
it's
why?
new.
Honestly, yeah, honestly, why would you think long term when everything is at the touch of a button or right in front of your hands? At least you think.
Yeah, so, it's oh man, it's very it's complicated, and I hope that people are able to like really understand what they're using. I think I was fortunate to not. I think early on there was something that got me off those platforms and to not see the value of those platforms. Now there is value to businesses, like to people who are doing advertisements and things like that. Like there's definitely value there. But as a user, just as a pure user, like there's like it's taking something from you and they're definitely compiling the data on you. And, it really becomes an issue of, what you decide is best for you. But when you see this certain thing, like if the first thing you do when you wake up is check your feed, or the intent, like kind of the intent of you posting things is, you're looking for certain things when you post, like that's an issue. But I'm not gonna just let that go right now. But those are things like really to think about. And anything you use for free, like Gmail, all this stuff, like you really have to ask yourself, like if it's free, what's the price that you're paying? And that's a question that I ask myself. Anything that I use and is free, I'm like, well, what are they taking from me if they're letting me use this? And what's the cost? Like, what's the cost of that to me for using it? Because it's clear, like even when I use email, like I was sending Joe something today, and it definitely scanned my email and wanted to send Joe something in the subject line. I was like, this isn't what I want to send Joe, but you think it is, but it's not what I'm sending them. So so you know, things like that where it's trying to predict. I mean, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's machine learning. Machine learning, the algorithm, artificial intelligence is constantly trying to pick up and it's constantly learning, and it's constant. These algorithms are constantly evolving, and they're getting smarter. Like I said in the documentary, they're getting smarter every day. You know, and that's why I thought the best part of the documentary was how that algorithm, that artificial intelligence was, how it was communicating with each other. The only off thing and what the algorithm said was when the one asked, do you think that the kid, like, do you think that the feed is good for him? And the algorithm, the artificial intelligence doesn't care about that. That was the one thing that I thought was a little bit off, because it doesn't care, because it's given the artificial intelligence, the algorithm is giving these directives, and it carries out the directives based on the people, whoever wrote, these programs. But it does have a life. It does have a life of its own, and it grows and it evolves into something that sometimes even the creators don't understand. But Joe, I think I'm a wrap on that. I think I'm a wrap.
Yeah, man. We can go on and on and on about the dangers of social media and quote unquote the social dilemma. The dilemma is technically you can't live without social media, but we kind of want our old lives back.
Yeah, you can. I do for the most. I mean, I do for the most part. Uh, but like I said, just I think it's something worth checking out if you haven't seen it, if you haven't watched it. Now, I do think after the 1 hour mark, it turns into they start to put some other stuff in there that
It falls off a little bit.
yeah. After the one, like I'm good with it until 1 hour, and then it turns into something else, and I don't. I mean, if you watch it, you understand what I'm saying. Like it turns into something else, and that kind of some of that stuff in there after that. Some of it is good and it's consistent with what I saw before that. But for me, it was apparent what was being attempted. I think they tried to sneak something in there, Joe. Do you understand what I'm saying? They
No,
tried to,
I understand
they,
100%.
they tried to sneak some stuff in there. And I thought to myself, I said, don't, I was thinking to myself. I said, don't, don't push it. That's what I was thinking when I seen this. I said, don't push what you're doing because you're doing something positive, but now you're turning it into something else. So if you watch it after that hour mark, maybe you'll understand. But
Ulterior motives.
but you know, if you're listening to this, I think you can figure that out. But that's all I got, Joe. I'm not going to talk. I think what we'll do is, I think next week, Joe, we'll talk about how attention is. Like you said it, Joe. This is what you said. You said attention is a new drug. You said that a while ago, and I think we're gonna go into that, and I think it's gonna be a good one. It's definitely gonna be a good one. But I'll close out on that.
All right, man. Well, hey, tune in next week, man, and we'll see where we go with this.
All right. Take care. Be safe.
Later.
Gapstone.